By the end of this video, you are gonna know exactly how easy it is to make this wood round sign. Whether you are looking to make it for yourself as a gift or you're wanting something to sell, this is the perfect jumping off point. Hello and welcome. My name is Jennifer and this is a little bit of Common Crazy where I love sharing easy DIYs and budget decor. And today I'm going to share with you how to make this sign all the way from design to the finished product so that you can either recreate this exact sign or customize it to fit whatever your needs are. I'd like to thank Cricut for sponsoring today's video. If you're new to Cricut, today I will be using the Cricut Explore 3. Now Cricut is a smart cutting machine that allows you to create personalized projects with hundreds of materials. It works with a software that's called Design Space that I will be showing you as well that comes free with your machine. This is where you create your project. You can browse through hundreds of images and fonts. Once you've created your project in Design Space, you just send it straight to your machine to cut it. Today we are starting off in Design Space. And right away, you're gonna head over to shapes and you're gonna choose the shape that you're gonna be using. So I selected a circle because I picked up one of these wood rounds at Home Depot, and this is the base that I'm using for my door sign. Now you can do this with whatever shape that you're doing. After that, you wanna make sure that you go ahead and head up to the top and you type in the size of your shape. So mine is 17 3/4 or 17.75. You can zoom out by hitting that little minus sign at the bottom so you can see the entire thing. And then I always like to change the color to white. It just makes it a lot easier to see as I am designing everything. Now it's time for me to sketch this out digitally. So headed back into shapes and I'm selecting the dotted line, but it goes vertically. I want it horizontally, so I flip it to a 90-degree rotation. And then you can just stretch that out by pulling on that little arrow to adjust the size of it and then place it wherever you want it. Because I'm color blocking, I actually need 2 of those signs, and the easiest thing to do is to make sure that that line is selected, and then you're gonna head to that top right side, hit that duplicate button, and then you will get a second line that you can just drag right into place. This is perfect because this tells you exactly what space you're gonna have when you go to add in your wording. Now you can leave this right here and not add anything else, but if you want to get a better feel for what it's going to look like, you can go into images, type in bow, so you can see where you want your bow to make sure that you are going to like it with a bow and that you gave yourself enough spacing for that wording that you are looking for. And you can do the same thing with like the flowers or the foliage that you want to put on there. I plan on doing like a little swag, so you can go in and type in like little floral swag. Again, it has several different options you can choose from. I just picked a couple and went with one of those, positioned it where I wanted it. Not really spending a whole lot of time on this part because this honestly is more like a placeholder to give you a visual idea. But in general, you just kind of want to get an idea about the sizing. After you have all of this done, now you can go in with your customized part, the wording that you want to use, whether it's your name, a welcome, a hello, whatever it is you want to do. I decided to go into phrasing that is on the left-hand side. I typed in welcome to our home, and Cricut has a lot of different options that you can choose from. I happen to really like this first one that I saw. So I selected that and then I went ahead and sized it. It wasn't going to be exactly what I wanted, so I clicked that little unlock button so I could stretch it. Once I did that, then all you need to do is you can delete everything you don't need, or if you just go to the right hand side, you can click the little eyeballs and that will hide it because the only thing we want to cut is actually the wording. When you have only that showing, then you can head up to that right hand corner and click Make It. When you're using either the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3, this screen pops up asking if you're going to do it on a mat or off a mat. I'm going with off a mat because I am using smart materials. If you're on a mat, this is really long, and so you would need a larger mat for that, like the 24-inch. When cutting without a mat, Cricut will actually only show you the smart materials as an option for what you're going to cut with. I'm actually cutting with the smart permanent vinyl. That's my favorite for these kinds of projects. The Cricut machine itself will signal to you that it's time to load your material on. If you're using the Explorer 3 or the Maker 3, it will actually measure your material to make sure that you have enough, and then it'll signal to you when it's time to cut it. After you are done cutting, if you are using a smart material, go ahead and trim it before you release it, and that way you won't waste any of your extra material. If you don't have this little holder, you can do it with scissors. but look how pretty it cuts it. Now, I hate wasting vinyl, so before I even go to weed it, I like to see how much vinyl I have that I can trim away, and luckily I can get half of this and save it, and of course you can always use your smart material on a mat at a later time. When you go to weed, I find it easiest if you just start in a corner. I like to use a little picker and just kind of get that corner going, and then you just want to pull away, keeping the sticky part of your vinyl away from the rest of your vinyl so it doesn't reattach to it. And then you go in and remove all the other little bits that you no longer need, like the inside of the L or O, E, things like that. Painting your sign is another area that you can customize it to make it fit whatever your needs are. I'm starting off with this brown truffle color from Waverly. I'm watering it down to create a faux stain. The reason why I'm using paint instead of a stain is because it dries so much faster. It actually is just a lot easier to use. When I go in, I just kind of brush it on loosely. I realize it's a little thick. I go in with my rag and I wipe back the excess. I add a little bit more water to my paint, and I personally find it easier to work in sections. Now, if you want to use a stain instead of a paint, by all means, you can do whatever you want right here. But if you make a boo-boo, I'm telling you, paint sometimes is easier to work with than stain. Now, this is just a work rag. I buy them on Amazon in a pack. I use them, I wash them, I reuse them. Super easy to do. Once you have all of this on there, go ahead and let it dry. It only takes a few minutes, and then you can use your original wording to help you tape off the section that it's going to go on before you paint. Now, to help you so you don't have any bleeding with your paint, you can first go in with some Mod Podge, and that will seal it off. I like to just cover the whole area because I'm weird like that, and I just like things to be completely covered. But honestly, as long as you just take it along the tape line, that is sufficient. You also don't want to neglect those sides, so make sure you bring the Mod Podge down over those sides because you will be painting your sides as well. After your Mod Podge is dried, then you can go in with your paint color. I'm using Waverly's chalk paint and white. I get my Waverly paint at Walmart. Now, I will tell you, in between each coat, you can go in with a heat gun to dry it. Warning though, if you do this because it's drying faster than it wants to, your paint will more than likely crackle. I knew that would happen. I was totally fine with it. It went with the look that I was going for, but if you don't want that look, then make sure you just let it dry on its own and do not rush it. While your paint is still wet, that is when you want to remove your tape. I did this after I did my second coat, and don't you just love those crisp, clean lines? While that dries, we're going to prep the decal here by adding the transfer tape. Now, anytime I'm using the Smart Vinyl, I always use Cricut's transfer tape. I love Cricut's transfer tape because not only do I think it's really good, but you can use it more than one time because it has such a great adhesive to it. I noticed that some of mine peeled off and I didn't cover up all the way or the entire to your home. So I have a small piece here that I'm adding just because you really do want to make sure your entire decal is covered. When you're working with Smart Vinyl, it's really important that you go over your edges with your scraper, and that is how you're going to make sure that your vinyl is sticking to your transfer tape. If you take your scraper and you go over it like super fast and you just kind of wash it, that is like a big no-no. You will find that it will not stick. You really want to make sure that you go around it and cover those edges. When you flip it upside down, you're going to hold on to that transfer tape with one hand, and then you are going to peel that backing back with the other hand as you press down and you go. I'm going like in super slow mode to show you, but as you peel it back, you're kind of pressing down at the same time, and it is seamless. Without a doubt, every time it will just come off like butter. Now, the opposite is true when you're applying the vinyl to the object itself. You don't have to be quite as aggressive with it because the vinyl is what's sticky, and that's why you have to go a little bit more aggressive when you're applying it to the transfer tape, but you can be a lot softer when you are applying it to the object itself, and you will find that you have great success getting it to apply. That's why I love this vinyl. It just has such great adhesion. Now, this part you want to go ahead and secure down any of the florals that you want to add. I like to add like a little swag at the top of it. I'm using some lamb's ear, and I just go in with each piece, swag it down, and then use my stapler, and then I do the same thing with some of this eucalyptus here. I first trim it down, place a couple of the sprigs on each side, and then back in with the stapler. When it comes to making bows, there are so many different tutorials out there, but here I'm going to show you one of the easiest ways to make a fell-proof bow every time. One of the things you need to make sure you're doing is using a wired ribbon, and I'm only using 2 different ribbons for this one. So I took the first ribbon, I cut 3 strips, and I'm doing the same thing with my second ribbon. Now it's time to start putting your bow together by taking your ribbon and folding it in half and overlapping those middle sections. I have an entire video that really explains this step by step. I will link that for you, but I am going to go through it and give you the gist of it. After you fold 4 of your ribbons, so 2 of each of them, you stack them on the straight ones, you're going to take a zip tie, you're going to flip those ribbons over, and you're going to hot dog them up. And then you are going to zip tie that zip tie, not completely tight. You want to make sure that you have enough give that you can move those loops around. Something to keep in mind is that you will get pretty aggressive, or you need to get pretty aggressive as you are adjusting your bow and getting it into place. And that is another reason why it's so important to use wired ribbon, because the wire will help it stay in place as you're doing that. Now, one thing I am doing different here that I generally don't do is I normally take a piece of ribbon and I wrap it all the way around to cover up that zip tie. But this time, I'm taking that ribbon, I hot glued it down in the center, and I'm looping it over itself after I had a little hot glue right there on that edge. And that just gives a little faux loop right there in the center and makes it look like it's part of that bow, and I really like the look that it gives. If you haven't already, don't forget to trim your zip tie. Before placing the bow, we are going to set this up so that we can hang it on the door, and I'm going back in with some of the ribbon and a little piece of rope and taking that ribbon with some hot glue first along the edge and then placing the rope right into that hot glue and then rolling the ribbon to cover up that rope. And then securing that down with some more hot glue. Now you can just use the rope alone or just the ribbon. I just thought that this was a really nice way to jazz it up a little bit. To attach this, I simply just used my handheld stapler. Now I did attach them lower, but it had a lot of give, so I did want to attach some staplers higher up on it. If you're using a handheld like this, you would want to take those staples into the fabric when you're higher up because the rope is a little too thick. Now you are ready to attach your bow. I personally like to do it with my stipple gun. I just lift up those loops and attach it by the tails of the ribbon. Don't forget to trim those tails. I like to do a dovetail, so I just fold it in half, trim from the edge to the center. I think this is absolutely beautiful, whether you are making it like I did here, where it can work all year long, or you're making a seasonal one. This is just a great base to teach you how to make all kinds of wood rounds for all times of year. I hope you feel absolutely confident in making your own wood round. I went ahead and selected another video for you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!